Welcome to a special live episode of the Needless Things podcast here on the Needless Things YouTube channel. Toy Lanta is this weekend. It is bigger and better than ever. Everybody should check out my interview with Brett Barton, who is the man behind the scenes, goes into a lot of detail about what to expect this year and about the story behind Toy Lanta. We expect to have him back on once this monolithic event has passed. But we're not really here to talk about Toylanta tonight. I am here with our head of research, Ryan Schweck.
Hey, good to see y'all tonight.
And we're just going to talk about toy conventions in general. I really just wanted to, and this was almost just going to be an audio episode. And then schedule-wise, it just worked out where we could go live, and why not?
Anything could happen.
Anything could happen. I mean, look, past episodes of Needless Things, there's been vomiting, there's been falling asleep, there's been all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So you never know what could happen. We might even bring Jay. Get Jay on the horn. See if we can get him in on this.
I could.
Maybe. Well, he probably doesn't have a. It'd be Jay, like old man portrait phone.
It probably would be. He'd have to boot up his old Dell computer in the basement. Get his little circle smear webcam running.
He literally could pop in here on his phone, though. We might try and get Jay on. We could probably get Hoffman on for a few minutes. He was on the Audible Interlude live stream Monday, dropping in. Rex Ship is here hanging out tonight. I don't have Christian to moderate the comments, so that's going to be up to me. But yeah, we're going to talk about just we're both men of a certain age. We've been to a few conventions, toy and otherwise, in our time. But before we get into toy convention talk, we got to go with a hot topic that I've been looking at lately, and that is Tariff Watch 2025.
I feel like we need like a breaking news.
And normally I would have made, I need to make a little video, with an exploding, rotating logo or something. But,
well, Dave, I just got to say, I'm really excited about, all the opportunities this is going to bring me as an American. I'm going to get a lot of extra money from this, apparently.
What do you mean gonna? Three days in, more money in your pocket.
That's what I'm waiting for.
I mean, that's, I guess it's somewhere.
Is that why my SM33 toy was cheaper today on Amazon?
More money in your pocket. That's it right there. So speaking of Amazon, I had because we've been following this pretty closely. We've seen some price. Big Bad has increased their prices by about 10% across the board. We've seen indications of free shipping going away in certain places. People are bracing for the inevitable economic decline of America. And today, when the new Star Wars stuff went up, these are Star Wars, the Vintage Collection action figures, 3.75-inch action figures. And when they went up, they were listed at $24.99. And I thought, this is it. It's over. Here we go. Done with this entire hobby because I'm absolutely not paying $25 for a 1/18 scale figure. So I did a little screenshot, did my posting. Basically had big I told you so vibes going on. And then later in the day, they price corrected them to $16.99. And what was confusing about it was, so I went to Amazon, saw $24.99, and I was like, good Lord, if that's how much they are on Amazon, how much is Big Bad charging for them? But Big Bad had them for $19.99, which is even more confusing. And then, like I said, later in the day, Amazon dropped them to normal, insanely overpriced Vintage Collection price of $16.99.
That it still blows my mind how much Vintage Collection costs.
It's crazy, and it's infuriating to me because it's still my preferred scale. If you could see everything in that direction, that is my Star Wars collection, and it's all that. And Black Series, just like with G.I. Joe, really, I never wanted 6-inch Star Wars figures.
Oh, yeah. See, I was the opposite. 6-inch Star Wars is what I wanted for so long. And stopped collecting 3 3/4 and moved completely to Black Series. I did get real nervous though. I saw everybody posting all of a sudden like, "Uh-oh, vintage collection's gone up $8." I was like, "Here comes $30 Black Series," and I'm already well, that's a lie. I was gonna say I'm being really choosy with Black Series, but it's not true. My head's a little choosier. Like when like the Skeleton Crew came up, I was like, they're not getting me this time. I know they're gonna be on clearance. I'm just gonna let them roll. And then I saw them and I'm like, yep, buying all these. And of course, like today, they're like $9 on Amazon.
Well, and that's where we've gotten though now is we're going to get to the point where most of your collectors are going to say, well, I can either wait for it or not own it because the full price is like with classified, which is the big thing we talk about on Audible Interlude, obviously. Pretty much everything through the end of the year has been announced. So I think 2025, I don't think we're going to see single figure prices go up. But 2026, I can almost guarantee you $30 classified and Marvel Legends and Black Series are on the way, unless there are significant changes to everything.
Yeah, I mean, look, if 9 costs $30, I'm gonna buy it. It drives me absolutely nuts. You don't have a low buy. It's like making me a crazy person. If you listen over on when we do XP Chapter 66, sometimes we have 9 Watch, where every time they do a Pulse, announcement or they have a fan stream, what was 9 announced today? And the answer is always no. I don't know what they're waiting for.
They hate doing aliens.
Which is crazy for a Star Wars line. And when they do them, they're great. Like Hammerhead is great. Now he was a deluxe figure, but like he's good.
Well, the vintage collection, Moma Nadon. Come on now. The vintage collection one they just showed is awesome, and I love that he comes with the Power of the Force rifle.
Yep.
But I'm just not. I think they made him a deluxe figure for no reason at all. I'm not paying $24.99 for that. It's preposterous. Look at this. Hoffman is in the chat. Sid Hoffman, you want to get on this? You want the link? We'll bring you in here. Send Schweck a text. He can send you the link.
He said he had a scratchy voice.
Oh, that's
he's not show ready this evening.
He's just
Hoffman, you got to keep your instrument tuned.
That's true. Well, he's just bashful. You know how he is. All right. So one more thing about Toylanta. Today is the last day. He said send it. Send him the link. Today is the last day for ticket pre-sales for Toylanta. If you want to get your tickets, $25 for all 3 days, which as big as this convention is, I think is still a great deal. If you wait to pay at the door, it's $40. And then they've also got the VIP tickets that get you access to the evening stuff and early entry. And then the super VIP, which gets you the exclusive ATL figure from the Four Horsemen. So get that before midnight tonight, before prices go up, and you'll pay more at the door.
And I'll say, I mean, while that sounds expensive, for a toy convention, possibly in the past, I mean, when you look at the guests they're going to have here, how big this show is.
It's a different level.
Yeah.
This is not a wear a costume and get a free entry, or like, this isn't that kind of toy show. This is a convention. It's not a toy show. It's a convention. So anyway, that's enough putting over Toylanta. We're gonna we'll see if you show up or not. But Noel's gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. It's gonna be a big time. So let's talk more now about just other conventions. Do you remember the first toy convention you went to?
Yeah. Well, I think the first one, I don't know if I even call it a convention, but there used to be a little gym in Gwinnett County, which we called the Dirt Mall.
Oh, yes.
I don't even know how to explain what the Dirt Mall was. It was a mall with items that came from questionable origins.
Well, it's like a strip mall, but it's all indoors. It's really weird. It's not because it's not a mall because it's only one level, and it had the feel of a strip mall, but it's all inward facing, and it's all just skeevy.
It really was.
And I
It really
know what you're
was.
talking about because it was. There were like at one point there were like 3 toy stores in there in the late 90s.
There were, and then every once in a while, they would have like a show, like in the middle of the aisles. Like sometimes they'd have like a sports cards day,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like every once in a while they had like a toy thing with other vendors would set up tables in the middle. It was very strange, but I think that was my first one back in like mid '90s, right when like that first big bubble starts.
Yeah, with McFarlane and Power of the Force and like all when people really started like speculating on toys.
I always think about what was so wild about those days too, because the internet, you had some sites, but not really organized. Like you kind of relied on knowing if something was rare or how much it was worth. Like you had like the Back of Toy Fair and Action Figure Insider and stuff. But
Which
even then,
the Toy
like
Fair prices were always just
yeah. And so you would like go to these places and like find some toy you had never seen or you might have just like heard about, and then you would haggle with some dude who you didn't really want to talk to and made you uncomfortable. And I was like a 14 years old haggling with some like 45-year-old overweight dude about some Star Wars toy or something. Like it's an odd experience.
It's funny. You say that. I remember. So the 2 main stores in there, because like I said, I think at one point there were 3 stores, but the 2 main stores, one was owned by 2 women, and they were awesome. I sold them stuff and got really fair prices. I bought stuff from them. They were great. Was it T&T Collectibles? T&T Collectibles?
I think it was. Yeah. Wow. Good memory.
And then not usually, but for some reason, it's this Twisted T, my own double T going on here. And then there was another one that was a comic shop, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was mostly toys, but it was just called whatever.
Somebody's comics.
I feel there was one that was like Ed's Comics or Mike's Comics or something like that. And then there was another one that was like Galaxy Comics or something. So I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But I remember going to the one store. It opened up after TNT had been in there for a while. Because remember, they started off at one smaller location, and then they expanded into one of the bigger locations. And that place was huge. But this other guy opened up, and the prices were always like a little too high. And he had like, it wasn't all vintage. He had some newer stuff too that like, that's never fun to me. Like when you go in and it's, oh, look, there's some vintage stuff. And then there's a wall full of like Funko Pops or Marvel Legends that you can go into Target and buy right now or whatever like that. That's not interesting.
Yeah.
But they had, and I wish I could think of the time frame on this, but do you remember the 12-inch Darth Vader with the removable helmet? It was electronic. It had voice. It's actually this one, the one I'm talking about, is actually up on the shelf behind me.
I was gonna say I have it. It's over there still. Yeah.
So I want to say maybe there were distribution problems with it. It was hard to find at some point. And he had one, and it was $50, I think, maybe 40, whatever the price that was on it was like great. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is here, because I had been looking for it. And I didn't have enough cash on me because back then, I was like, I think I didn't use a debit card at all. I think I was just all cash. Like that was for, I just didn't use it. So I was like, can you hang on to this for me? I'm going to run back to the house, grab some cash. I'll be right back. He was like, well, I don't know if like he gave me a hard time about it. And I was like, well, you can or not, but I'll be back. And I think maybe he said he wouldn't hold it. So I went back to the apartment. This was the 3-bedroom, the wrestling apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Went back, got my cash, went back to the store, and he had marked it up to $75.
So it's funny you have a similar story, because actually when I was thinking about tonight, I thought about that store. That guy, Surfer and Pete, who also lived in that apartment, used to refer to him as my nemesis, because we would like get into arguments. The guy was just a jerk. And I remember once I had done what I used to call the loop. So you would loop and go to like KB, Toys R Us, the Dirt Mall.
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
all right there. And so I'd gone to KB and Toys R Us, and then I'm at the Dirt Mall looking around in that guy's store, and I don't know how it came up. We were talking, and it was right when the 12-inch, that first Boba Fett came out. The electric, it's the same thing.
Got that one too.
We were talking, the guy's like, oh yeah, it's really rare. No one knows where he did it. I was like, yeah, man, I just saw it at KB, like literally 30 minutes ago. And then he argued with me whether I'd actually seen it or not. Like, actually was like, you didn't see that, did I? I was like, dude, I'll go buy it and bring it back. Like, I will buy it and bring it back, and we will trade toys. Like, this is going to happen. So I get back in my car, go back across to the mall, buy this stupid Boba Fett, come back with it, and show it to him. And then he was just like, oh, whatever, I don't want that. I was like, what the hell, dude?
That guy was a shithead. He's
really
probably still out there somewhere. I mean, well, that was almost 30 years ago. So I don't know. Wherever he is, I hope he's doing well and isn't a shithead anymore. Yeah, we talking about the Gwinnett Mall area. So also, because remember, the Target used to be by the mall and not over on the other side. And then that Walmart was right across 85.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, you really hit a bunch of places when you'd go over there. But when I even younger, in probably, this would be the early 90s, me and my buddy Dan would get dropped off at the mall. We'd go to KB, and we would go across Pleasant Hill, like across this 6-lane road to Toys R Us. And then walk back over to the mall to meet whoever, was picking us back up. Crazy times.
It was. That was such like back then, doing toy shows and doing runs like that. When like there weren't like reports, like you would kind of know stuff was coming out, especially when Toy Fair started kicking in, you get some previews. But like that excitement of like going in and being like, what in the world is this? Like, I remember finding that first wave of Spider-Man classics.
Yeah.
At a Walmart. And I was like, what are these? And like, that was such like a cool time of like hunting things.
Stuff would just show up. Like well, again, that early 90s, because I never really, I had like a year where I wasn't collecting toys. So early 90s, Ninja Turtles, it would be or the Ninja Turtles or the 5-inch Marvel Toy Biz.
Yeah.
Like I was collecting all that stuff, and just new stuff showed up. You never knew what was going to be coming out. You'd go to the store and like a whole new wave of things. It was so exciting to walk in there and see that stuff, as opposed to, ordering it and waiting 6 to 9 months for it to show up at your door.
And then especially too, when you would go to a show and you would like see these things. Like I remember seeing Power of the Forest long lightsaber at a toy store, a toy show.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was one of those things that was like a rumor. Like you had heard somebody had seen this, and all of a sudden there it was. And it was so mind-blowing. Why was a longer lightsaber mind-blowing? I don't know, but it was very exciting.
Okay, so wait. Wasn't the long lightsaber, or maybe I'm thinking of, because Tomart had a cover story about the 95 Power of the Force stuff. No, you're right. Yeah, the short saber was the regular. The long saber was the mess ups that people were like, "What is this?" That's right. I was trying to remember if it was initially the long saber stuff and then they corrected it. I don't know, but either way, yeah, that was a big deal, and now those are worth nothing. But people were like, "Oh my gosh, we got to save these!
Sending my kids to college."
Right. Yeah, that was literally the mentality people had with all that. A lot of the '90s stuff, like we said, once the speculating really kicked in. That was the thing. Once people realized that collectors were paying money for like vintage Star Wars, vintage Joe really wasn't a thing, I guess, because it had just died.
Yeah.
Like the original Real American Hero line died in 94. So even by 97, 98, 99, Joe's still in the stores and the vintage stuff just isn't. I don't remember that really being a thing in these stores in the way a lot of other stuff was at the time.
No, yeah, you would see like a Snake Eyes or a Storm Shadow. Like, I think those people still held on to. I mean, do you think it's like looking at Star Wars versus G.I. Joe? G.I. Joe kind of went out with a whimper, right? Like, you're at the end with stuff that people didn't love. I think it's fair to say, and you'll know this better than me, that was the eco stuff and the whatever that last.
You know, it's funny because up until we started doing Audible Interlude, in my mind, the Joe stuff in the 90s was just hated by every Joe fan. But that's not a fact. The fact is that Joe fans my age didn't like that stuff, but Joe fans, 5, 6, 10 years younger than us, that's what they grew up with. We've talked to all kinds of people now who like the Desert Duke from 90, 91, whatever. That's the only Duke they ever had. Or like the Star Brigade stuff, like that's the only gung ho they ever had. So there's a whole generation of Joe fans behind us that they do love that stuff, and that is what they grew up with. And that 90s neon stuff, and even the deep cartoon to some of them, that's G.I. Joe to them. It's been really, really interesting catching up, I guess. But it's the same thing as like, how when you talk to somebody, because like Lion King and Jurassic Park, they're big deals to us, but they're not like the Goonies or Back to the Future. But you talk to somebody 10 years younger than us, and Lion King and Jurassic Park are like life-altering, crazy. Like it's just a different level of when it hit them.
Yeah. Speaking of Jurassic Park and toys, though, I have felt robbed by the new Jurassic Park movies that I have yet to see a dinosaur with a dude riding on the side with like a net. Like, I was really hoping we were going to get to that because those toys promised me some awesome things were coming.
Yeah, I wanted my hope after the first Jurassic World, they set it up to where the next obvious step was basically Dino Riders.
I thought was going to happen. That's what I thought. What's his name was doing?
BD Wong.
BD Wong, yeah. I was like, BD Wong's putting a laser on that dinosaur. And it's going to be amazing.
I thought cyborg dinosaurs 100%, but they're cowards. They can't be bold and change things up. Going back, you're right. The dirt mall was definitely, like, as far as people showing up to sell toys was a thing. But think about this, back before the internet was the thing that it is now, you'd go to like Dragon Con and stuff. And that was a big toy hunt, going to the dealer room at just a regular, not a toy convention. That was a huge deal because you couldn't, even as recently as, I can't remember what year it was, but it was, there were a bunch of Buffy guests. It's within the past, it might've been more than 10 years ago, but sometime in the last 15 years, they had a bunch of Buffy guests, and me and Jay were like, oh, the dealers have tons of the Buffy figures for dirt cheap. Let's go buy a bunch and then get them signed. And so I think he and I both bought like 5 or 6 figures and then went back to the dealer room and they were all gone, or all of them except a couple of them were gone. So we were stuck with a bunch of, which, I mean, obviously I don't mind having Buffy figures, but like it was still up until probably about 10 years ago. That was a huge part of just regular conventions for me, was seeing what toys were going to be there.
And it was so big with those two, especially Dragon Con. That's where I would really look for convention exclusives.
Yeah, the San Diego Comic-Con stuff would be there every year because it's right after San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, that's where I got like my Thunderbolts box set. I'm trying to think what else. I've gotten some of those big exclusives there. And for a little while, like the prices weren't that terrible. Like they would pick them up there and bring them, and it was surprising. That Thunderbolts box set, I didn't pay that much over retail for, which was amazing. I mean, now they're crazy, and you don't really need to do it because Pulse and all of them, for the most part, put them up. But yeah, I remember looking for exclusives. You'd always hunt those couple of figures you would miss somehow.
Yeah.
I miss too, like old Dragon Con, probably like when you and Jay were doing that. I liked when there would be like the tote under the table, and it was just chock full of just random stuff. Yeah. And like you would tell the guy would be like, I don't know, you can have like 5 for $10. I'm like, all right, digging in these like totes of dirty toys that probably had bugs on them, while there's like a strange anime pornography booth going on behind you. Like,
well, and that's still a thing though. Like if I guarantee you at Toylanta this weekend, at least 1 out of every 3 of the dealers there will have one of those totes, because that's a draw for like kids. Kids want to dig through those. Dude, when I went to the Charlie's Collectibles show, when I had the table there a couple months ago, or shit, probably 6 months ago, but whatever, when I had that table there, I had 4 totes, and then I had a bunch of new stuff that I sat up on the table. All anybody did was come and dig through those totes, to the point where I at one point swept a bunch of the stuff that I had on the table into a tote, because people were not looking at the table. They were just digging through those totes all day.
I mean, it's because the new stuff, for the most part, is super easy to get. Like, I think about like.
Well, when I say new stuff, I mean mint in box. Nothing on my table was new, but it was all still in box. Most of it was at least like five years old or so.
I'm just always surprised by those booths at Dragon Con you see now, that it's just shelves of Marvel Legends and Black Series and classified.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Who's buying that?
Or Funko Pops.
Yeah.
Why are there? I just don't understand how that's sustainable when you can go into Kroger and buy Funko Pops. They're like kudzu. They just grow and take over everything.
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, I guess the Funko Pop, that market's kind of busted, right? Like stores I'm seeing now, like I know GameStop put them all on crazy clearance. We have a local toy store called the Toy Bunker, which is great. And if you ever need to buy new toys, I highly recommend them. It's a local guy owns the store. His shipping's real good. He has a good rewards program. But he basically cleared his inventory of all of them.
I think Target did like a buy 2 get 1 free for a while. And if I remember correctly, they had to like requisition a landfill to get rid of their stock after the pandemic, something like that. Let me see if I can do a little Googling here real quick. So outside of Dragon Con, can you think of any other like gatherings or conventions or anything? Yo, here it is, NPR. Whoa. Over $30 million worth of Funkos are being dumped. This is from March 4th of 2023. The inventory has filled the company's warehouse to the brim, forcing Funko to rent storage containers to hold the excess product. And now the product is worth less than it costs to keep it on hand. Funko said that by the end of last year, its inventory totaled $246 million worth of product. So anyway, yeah, they dumped
Funko is our generation's Atari ET. It's
right.
just this place that there's millions of them. I think I only own one Funko Pop, and I
Look,
own
we've got a
Platoon because I
bunch.
have a problem. But
We've got a bunch. Because if it's the right character, yeah, I agree with this. Rexship says Funko needs to have a recycling program. I agree. They should have a bring us 5 Funko Pops to recycle and get one new one or something like that.
It's like a buyback guns program for Funkos.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, if it's the right character, like we got, and this was pretty early on. It's been years since we bought one, but we got some of the Universal Monsters ones. I got an Alien one from Prometheus because it came with the little baby alien. Like,
Nice.
if there's a gimmick to it or it just looks a certain way, we've picked them up. But yeah, it has been years since we've gotten one.
I'm trying to think. I remember going. There was a toy convention, and I think it might have been Toyland that brought it, or Atlanta Comic Con. But they used to do one at that Marriott.
Yeah, they still do.
Norcross. Yeah, they still do that one. I remember going to that one pretty early.
So the Atlanta Comic Convention, which for a few years Wizard World bought that name, but the original Atlanta Comic Convention was still running. I still don't understand that deal, but anyway, it's still going. It's still I think the next one is April the 6th, and they do them quarterly, I believe. They're not the same as they used to be. Like now, it's all comics, and there'll be like a couple of toy tables. So for me personally, it's not as exciting. But you used to go to that one, and it was like half toys for a long time. It was worth going down there. And do you remember that? So Toylanta used to be the Great Atlanta Toy Convention and Joe Lanta. Those were 2 separate entities that started running together and did not choose a name and were for several years referred to the event as Joe Lanta and the Great Atlanta Toy Convention, which is just too much. And then they merged into Toylanta, and now they're doing Joe Lanta again. It's the same people running it, but it is 2 separate shows now. But anyway, Great Atlanta Toy Convention used to be in that Marriott Century Center, which I still really like as a space. It's not big enough for a large-scale show, but it's great for like a day show or a weekend show. But anyway, do you remember going and Raven would just show up with a table?
Yes.
And set up and sell stuff, and it really seemed like he just showed up, because they have how that place is set up. There's the one really big room, there are a couple other smaller rooms, and then there's a hallway, and there are always people set up in the hallway. Like usually if it's a toy convention, it'll be like the comic artists and stuff are set up in the hallway doing art and signing things, and Raven would find an open spot in the hallway with his own folding table and just fucking sit down, and we bought stuff from him. He sold Riley an Underdog figure for a really nice price years ago. And then when we got it home, it turned out the head had been glued on and it broke right off. I was like, Raven, you son of a...
It's on brand.
You're right. He's a heel.
Yeah, he sat there said, "Oh yeah, I do remember him sitting there." And I remember sometimes see like him or one of those other people, and they would just sit there and there'd be like no one around at the table, and for no apparent reason I would just feel bad for him and be like, I mean, should I go talk to him? Like I have no connection to Raven, but I feel bad this guy's sitting there, no one's paying him any mind.
Wait a minute, what is going on? Hoffman says the Century Center's gotten really hard to deal with for toy convention. I've heard that they're I don't know if there's a staff change or what. Where are you? You're supposed to be in here talking to us, man.
I texted and asked for his email.
But I do. I still like that space. But there are other spaces. We went to a horror convention a couple weeks ago off of Ashford Dunwoody. Oh gosh, was it Mad Monster Party? Yeah, Mad Monster Party. And it was a great space. It was like it's the kind of thing where if you're going to program nighttime activities, which you should, because
Mhm.
why wouldn't you? Everybody knows some bands, everybody knows some kind of performers, everybody knows the big damn game show. Just find a hotel space like that, program some evening stuff, and make a whole weekend, keep people on site spending money.
Well, and I was gonna say, if you can get people there all weekend, you have a higher chance. I mean, how many times have you gone to one of these toy shows or Dragon Con, and on Sunday there's something like you've had your eye on all weekend? You get to Sunday and you're like, I didn't spend that much.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go in and see what happens. Like, I've walked out with so many figures that way because it was still there.
Well, and also on Sunday they want to take their stuff home, so they're all trying to get rid of it. I saw this was at one of those Marriott Century Center shows. One guy sold all of his stuff to another dealer in one shot because he didn't want to take it home.
I miss those like Sunday. I used to love, and I don't think this happens as much anymore, but man, I used to love a good toy haggle. Like, I used to love making deals with people and trying to talk them down and be like, what if I gave you this much?
I can do.
As a dealer, they probably didn't love it much. But back then, it was a little more encouraged, I think.
I think some of them do enjoy that. I think some of them are there for like the marketplace atmosphere and wheeling and dealing. I think some of them do enjoy that stuff. I've gotten a lot better. I used to never do that. Because I just hate. Exactly. As always, Wreck Ship nailed it. Haggling is a hassle for me, but I've gotten a lot better at it. I'm very comfortable now if I go up with several things saying, hey, can you give this bundle to me for this much? But I've had to up my game because Riley will haggle the shit out of people.
Nice.
I don't know where. He mostly gets it from his mom. But Joe Fest last year, everything he didn't pay full price for anything that he bought. He'd be standing there in the booth like talking to these guys, and I'm like, what is going on? And I'd kind of listen, and he'd be like, yeah, you've got 25 on this one. I can give you 15. And I'm like, what? I mean, he is.
Does Riley have a good walk away? That's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. Oh, if he doesn't get what he wants, he's out of there.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what they see. All right, so Hoffman is here, but he doesn't have a camera on. We need to see that beautiful. There he is. Oh, look at that.
It ain't great.
And you sound good though.
Thanks.
He's on the
move.
So yeah, I think they can see in his face that he is ready to walk at the drop of a dime.
Yeah, I loved it. I love, like, every once in a while you just come back and be like, yeah, is that Obi-Wan still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You thinking about that 20 now instead of that 30?
Right.
No? Okay.
That's Sunday,
Maybe
man.
I'll see you later.
That's Sunday.
Now, all right, here's a question I have for you, and I think I know the answer.
Oh, wait, real quick.
Oh, yeah.
That was no good introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Brian Hoffman.
Thank you. And
is this a little sneak peek of inventory you're going to have at Toyland?
Yeah. Stuff's already boxed up and ready to go. It's not like been in these boxes probably since I moved into this house. All prepped and ready to go.
Hoffman lives in a toy booth in certain rooms of his home.
Pretty much.
It's cramped. There's stuff in boxes, stuff open.
There's stuff with price tags. Yeah.
That's all that stuff I brought. All that stuff that I had when I had the sale here at the house, and then I brought the rest of it down to that Charlie's Collectibles. All that stuff is still sitting in totes priced because I'm in the middle ground of the thing that we've been talking about. So I at this point I don't want to give up inventory.
Well, right.
I myself have purchased toys from the very room Hoffman's sitting in. I might have tried to haggle a little bit. I don't remember. It depends on how many drinks I had.
Yes, exactly.
I just feel bad for Hoffman for having to deal with Noel on a regular basis because that is a man who will haggle over some pricing.
I usually just giving him stuff.
Oh my gosh! So I can't tell you the number of times that we've been doing an episode like after a convention or something, and I've been like, man, yeah, I got whatever I got a deal on this thing, and then he'll come back like a week later, like, oh yeah, I got one of those too for 20% less than what I paid for it. Like he intentionally is trying to one up. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I remember a couple shows ago, both you guys were running around with Mambas.
Yeah.
And you were trying to one up each other on what deal you got.
Yes. That is exactly what happens, which is good though, because that's another thing that makes me like a little more willing to haggle and be conscious of what I'm spending, as opposed to just being like, well, I'm okay with that price.
Mm-hmm. Now, I imagine too at toy shows, like your experience, both of you getting vintage, especially with G.I. Joe, is probably a little different because you're looking at, is this missile there? Is this,
so many parts.
This hatch that is notorious for breaking since 1983. Like, is it still there?
Yeah, like here, you can have this. It's not put together. You're welcome to put the missile rack on it once you buy it. But now it's intact.
Hoffman, what are your personal, like, as far as your own collection, stuff you're buying to put on your own shelf,
mm-hmm.
what are your standards? Do you want stuff to be pristine, or are you like me and like, I'm okay with, if I still had the one I had when I was a kid,
yes,
this is what it would look like. Like, that's the level I look for.
Yeah, so I am perfectly fine with buying what I like to call a starter figure.
Yeah.
Especially if the price is right. Because I usually don't want to pay minty prices on things. So
your comfort.
I'm comfortable kind of in every way. I do know when I get into some of the harder to complete figures that it's not worth trying to buy the parts for them.
Well, and that's where I am now, is the it's not even necessarily, I mean, it is the money, but it's not even necessarily as much the money as it is the time, because sometimes trying to find, because like Christian, he'll buy a bare bones shell and be perfectly fine with taking 5 years to find all the parts for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't operate like that.
Now, does he find the parts, or do y'all find parts, or is there a bigger market for, like, not a big market, but like a 3D printing market where you've got somebody that's producing this part for a Mamba or something like that?
So yes, and yes. So there's definitely reproduction stuff, and then there's guys that are making some of the 3D printed stuff, but they're making it different.
Does that change your view of the toy? Like, if it's not pure 1984?
No.
For me, I don't care. I've got a number, because my vintage Joes will never be sold. And I don't, like, my Destro has a repro pistol. I've got a few things that I just don't care, as long as it looks right to me on the shelf. And that's another part of my collecting, is if I don't remember, like, before I buy a figure that I had when I was a kid, I don't like go look it up to see what came with it. Mm-hmm. If it has everything that I remember it having, that's good enough for me.
Yeah. So if you're missing like one little attachment that you don't remember.
Yeah. If
like
I don't know
a
it,
wrench
I don't care.
that fits somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with the reproduction, as long as you're being honest and telling me that it's a reproduction, or not trying to swindle something to me as being, legit. So a couple things that I collect are some of the custom figures as well, that have been where people have gone and taken let's see, let's switch my camera. I don't know if you can see how well you can see them, but that's a, let me switch the lighting. I have no idea how this works. This is
That's right. We sprung this on
custom.
You. You didn't have time to prepare.
This is a factory custom where somebody went in and bootlegged one of the G.I. Joe troopers and did them in a different color scheme.
Is that Lady J or Black Major, or which one is that?
That was Black Major.
Okay. Yeah, I got one of the Lady J. Have you seen that stuff?
Yes.
I got their Purple Baroness, and it's great. Like the plastic's a little light, but it looks great.
And once you kind of know how they feel, you're never gonna mistake them once you feel them because of that
Yeah.
weight difference.
Yeah,
So
those
that-
companies are doing really, or those companies, those individuals are
Yeah.
doing
That
really
guy.
cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we've got Black Major, Red Laser, who's out of the business, and then
Well, he's out of that business.
he's out of that business, correct? So, yeah, and then you've got Lady J, who is actually somewhat related to Black Major.
So is Lady J relatively new? Because I hadn't heard of that one at all until maybe like a year-ish ago.
She went under a different name for a few years. One of the
Okay.
like, it wasn't Black Major Nation. It was another Black Major one.
Okay.
But yeah, she is. I don't know the exact connection, but she is somewhat family to John Black Major.
Okay. So you weren't here at the beginning. Do you remember your first like actual toy show you went to, or the first place you went where it wasn't like a store to buy toys?
Okay, I grew up in Chambly, and in Chambly, right by Chambly High School, there used to be an antique store, and I was probably 14 or 15. I was there with my mom, and there was a guy that was selling vintage toys, and he had a Jabba the Hutt in the box. And I'm like, okay, I think I want to buy this. I remember it not being terribly expensive, and then I was like, it's got everything. And he looked through the box. He's like, no, it doesn't have the pipes. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait, and I didn't buy it. So I kind of remember that. And
Which is funny because the pipes were available. I think still are available,
yes,
right?
the new old stock.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but no, that's one of those first kind of experiences, being an early teenager. And then a friend of mine I used to skate with when I was 15 or 16 had a bunch of the Spawn toys. And then that kind of got me right back into it. And then the Power of the Force 2 came out.
Yeah, that was so Spawn was like 94-ish, and then Power of the Force was 95, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was probably like my junior senior year of high school, right around there, is like the 1 year where I wasn't collecting, because I came back in with the two big things I remember. They did that Playmates did a Star Trek original crew bridge set.
Yes. I've seen
That
that set.
I told my mom that was what I wanted for Christmas, and she was like, that's toys. What? I was like, I just want to have it because it was great in the package, like really cool set. And then they did the early bird kit again.
Mm-hmm.
Only it was actually like a box set of the Star Wars early bird figures that I had like mint in box for a long, long time and then sold it. Wish I hadn't. Although I'm sure it's cheap now.
Look, when you sold a bunch of those Star Wars toys, I definitely took advantage of that. I remember coming, and buying. I remember I got Bamar Monk from you. I think who else I got. I just remember getting Bamar Monk because it was one I was missing.
Yeah, I sold a ton to you and a couple other people, and then I took the rest of them I took a ton of stuff to the TNT Toys. Because I can't remember. I think I had to get my car fixed or something. I don't think I just straight up lost interest, although that was part of whatever it was. And I don't remember when it was either, because I mean, we were all there at Toys R Us for Phantom Menace.
First.
At midnight. So I mean, in '99, I was still buying Star Wars. So I don't know exactly when that happened. But anyway, to get back to the convention talk. So
Speaking of convention, do you want some of those 99 Phantom Menace figures?
No, I'm good, thanks. I'm all full up on those. So if you going to a convention now, what are you looking for? Like, what's something that would excite you? Whether it's vintage or, maybe something not necessarily new, but like at Toylanta, they're going to have a lot of the Mythic Legions and a lot of the current independent toy companies are going to be on site. Like, what's going to excite you walking around there?
So I am very, very, very worried about the Mythic Legions and the and what is it? What's the one that's got the ATL figure? Is that a Mythic
Oh yeah.
Legion?
Well, that's Four Horsemen.
Four Horsemen.
It's
Yeah,
like I think it's like Cosmic Legion's
yeah, I
part.
am terrified of those things because they look so good, and I'm like, I know if I get like one of those, it's gonna
Yeah.
be, it's gonna.
I
Be
got
bad.
into Mythic Legions a few years ago, and they look fantastic, but they're just not playable at all to me. And it's not like I sit here and and really playing with figures, but I like them to be posable. I like to be able to move them without stuff falling off of them. I like to, and they're gorgeous figures, but they're just not, to me, they're not great toys. And I need both of those things.
I do like some playability.
But yeah, some of those Cosmic Legions figures, there's a big giant one with a big bubble helmet. Speaking of which, have you guys seen this in person yet?
I'm not done building it yet. I
love it.
So that kind of goes with what I look for now with Marvel Legends. Marvel Legends and Black Series are what I mainly collect now. And I've got all of them.
Oh, for the listeners, this is the current Nemesis Build-A-Figure from the X-Men Marvel Legends wave. For anybody just listening,
I've got every Marvel Legend up until about 7 years ago, maybe, and I started kind of picking and choosing. So what I look for now is, because I'll convince myself, I don't need to get that one. That's not a big deal. But then when I'm going to shows, I'll hunt for the loose ones.
Yeah.
And I'll try to fill those holes, like I filled in Black Knight. I filled in a couple of ones that I had skipped and not really ordered, and then I'll go back and do that. Yeah, and see, like that Nemesis, like that's a good example. Like that wave, I want like 3 of the figures out of that wave.
I know, right? Is Age of Apocalypse Gambit one of them? Because I've got a deal for you, buddy.
Like, so you put like Morrow and Fabian Cortez and that in a wave, and yeah, I really want those, and I've gotten them. But then I look, at that Gambit and the Nightcrawler. I mean, at least the Nightcrawler I can fit in with the X-Force characters. But like, as I'm kind of skipping through waves when I'm going to shows now, I'm filling back in.
That's smart.
Versus having to do that.
Because I bet by the time, like, if a wave... Now, here's the problem, though. Like, this X-Men wave, I believe, is another online only. I don't think it's headed to stores.
So it's weird. It's going to certain stores. Like, it's in GameStop, but it's only certain figures.
Fan channel goes to GameStop, but they're not hitting like Walmart, Target.
No. And so that wave, surprisingly, I was talking to my guy at Toy Bunker about that wave, and he said that's the best-selling Marvel Legends wave they've had in a long time. Like,
I mean, the Build-A-Figure, I think, is one of the best ones Hasbro's done.
I wasn't going to get it until I opened the 3 I got and saw those Build-A-Figure pieces. And I've got my original Build-A-Figure of, at the time was Holocaust, which obviously we've changed that name now.
Yeah, right.
A good idea. I've still got him, but that one is such a better version. Yeah, and my original has all the problems that everybody's has, where the hinge broke on the little helmet.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I never had that one, so because I don't remember what was in that wave at all.
Oh, God, it's awful. It's one of those early Return of Marvel Legends waves when they came back, and it's rough.
Where not only is it like bad character selection, but the figures are also real wonky.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right now, I just mostly vintage stuff is what, like, I want to find. I mean, I'm still working on my Joe collection. I want to find like battle beasts and little weird stuff, visionaries, supernaturals. Mm-hmm. Like, you always see that kind of stuff. And if I see one that's exactly the right like condition and price, I'm gonna grab it. Like, I love getting. I don't want to go and buy like, okay, here are all the Centurions. I've just got them now. that's the kind of stuff where I'm comfortable with, like, oh, this, I was going to say Chest Rockwell because I've been listening to Lovage, Rockwell, whatever his name is. Like, here's the guy with the original parts, condition looks good, and the price is right. Now I've got him. But I'm not, like, hunting for him. Like, I like kind of like we were talking about with going to the stores before and you just find stuff. I want to just find, oh, this one is the right combination for me. Now I've got it. As opposed to I'm scourging across all of the convention looking for this one thing.
The hunt is a big thing I think I miss about the hobby. Like, I remember going to conventions and having like a list. This is who I'm looking for. These are the figures I'm looking for, because that was how you got them. There were websites you could get them, but it wasn't real reliable. And, it's not the same as it used to be.
No.
When you go, like you said, to Dragon Con. Like, I go to a Dragon Con booth and I look at it and I'm just like, I know I can get that. Like, I miss that angle and that part of toy collecting, because it was about not just getting the figure, but like that rush of like walking into a booth and seeing that one toy you had been hunting for so long,
and then it being at a reasonable price.
Well, and that is the thing about toy conventions. Even if you do go in with your list, it is about like, oh, there's that thing, and especially one this big. It is much more significant because you're going to walk around, because we go to Joe Fest and you go in there for a few hours and you feel like, I think I've seen everything, and then you're hanging out talking to people and you're like, wait a minute, there's like a whole corner over there I haven't even looked at yet, and this is like 4 times as big as that. So it really is going to be a lot of fun just to spend time in there looking around, and then the stuff that you like forgot about. Like, you run across some Spiral Zone figures or something.
Are you coming out for the show?
I don't know. We were talking about that before. I thought about it. I know we've got a family thing Saturday afternoon, but I'm also starting spring break on Friday, so who knows? Now, all right, here's a question. And Dave, I think I know where you stand on it. Booths at toy conventions that don't price their toys.
Yeah, you know where I stand. Hoffman, how do you feel about that? And Hoffman, as somebody who sells at toy conventions.
I will be pricing well into Saturday morning. It's just the nature of it. But I price the more popular items first. I price the items I know people are going to ask about first. If somebody asks me a price about something, I'm putting a sticker on it right then and there while I'm doing it. But it's just kind of the nature of what it is. I don't intentionally not have the prices, but
some
it's
do.
just more. Yeah. But no, I am like, I'll even tell people that, hey, look, I haven't updated the prices on these items over here. So let me know if you've seen anything. There might be some room in them.
Now,
but some sellers, that's their business model, though, is they just don't price things because they want to try and gauge how much you want it.
So the fun thing about pricing for me is trying to figure out how much room I have to put in for the haggle. So I'm like, all right, this is a $20 toy. This is a $20 toy on eBay. I'm going to go and put it up for $18, $19, $17. Just a little bit below eBay.
Right.
I'll take $15 for it. But I don't want to just put 15 on there, because
no, of course,
yeah, I want to have that little bit of room in there. But then you get the guy that comes in, picks it up, and puts it down, and probably would have paid 15 for it if I marked it at 15. So sometimes you just gotta ask. It's just funny
when you're selling at a booth. Like, do you see a Phantom Troublemaker Jr.
Oh my God! So
approaching, like, can you see the haggler coming from like a mile away? Like, this one's going to be a problem.
Yeah. So it happens every once in a while, and I know guys that have like beat me up on prices over things in the past, and a lot of people I see are the same. But speaking of a Troublemaker Jr., a couple Joe Fests ago, Troublemaker and Troublemaker Jr. roll up, and Junior's got a bag full of toys, and I Yeah, I'm like, hey, what do you got? What'd you pick up? Completely determined to absolutely wreck him and make fun of whatever he pulls out of the bag. And he pulls out vintage Playmates turtles. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't make fun of you for having like legitimately good vintage toys pulling out of your bag. Dave, I know I've told you the story before, but it cracks me up.
Well, he's never been, and look, obviously he grew up in this with all the shit that I've been into, but also just on his own, he's never been like the skibbity toilet kid or, whatever the thing. He's always, whatever it is he likes, he's into. And at the time, like those vintage turtles were tight. That was, shit, that might've been like 2019, maybe. I think it was pre-pandemic, maybe.
Yeah, but it just cracked me up. I was like, and I admitted to him, like, dude, I was going to ruin you on anything you pulled out of that bag. And I think that's the one thing that like kryptonited me.
That's a take home for going to toy conventions. Take your children, and they'll be harassed by middle-aged gentlemen on what they bought.
So, what?
All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and hop off. I appreciate the chance to come on and chat with you guys for a couple minutes.
Thanks for stopping in, man. I'm sure you've got a lot of prep work to do. So
I do.
We appreciate your time.
All right, you guys have a good one. I'll see y'all this weekend.
All right, later, man.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.
So if you're, let's say you do make it out to Toyland at this, or any toy convention, or any convention, whatever, is there one thing, like maybe a higher dollar item, that if you saw it, you would just have to get it? Like, is there one grail piece to you that would be like a, holy shit, I can't believe I'm looking at that right now?
There's some holes I've got in my DC Universe Classics collection.
Ooh, yeah, right.
That they're not necessarily like huge grails or huge sets, but like I'm missing Vixen, and I never ended up getting Alfred in those last couple of waves.
I've got that Alfred. I need Solomon Grundy, which is a dumb one to need because he was so early on. But if you remember, I didn't start collecting those until I think I didn't, because I was never a completist, but I wasn't buying most of them until the chemo wave. I think that was the first Build-A-Figure. I think that was the first time I was like, I have to get this whole wave because that figure is so incredible. And then from there, I ended up being almost a completist because I think the Build-A-Figures were always just, for the most part, so good or must-haves.
Yeah, they really are.
But prior to that, I think I was cherry-picking some here and there before that one. But the first maybe 5 waves of those, I don't think I was buying anything at all because I was mad that they switched. Because if you remember, they did
the superheroes line.
They did the Batman, and they were much higher quality figures.
Yeah.
Because that Batman is one of the best Batman figures that's ever been made. It's got like the tread detail on the boots. It's got a nice wash on it. It's an incredible figure. And so they did a couple of waves like that. I think they did a Batman wave, a Superman wave.
And there's let's see, there's the Batman wave because it's got the Freeze and the Scarecrow.
That's right.
And then there's Superman and a Clark Kent and a Supergirl, I think.
And then like a weird villain. It was like a weird Metallo, maybe?
It's that really terrible first Metallo.
Yeah.
It's the robot body, and mine's broken. But they were infamous for breaking on that spine. Because it was so skinny.
So yeah, at first I was mad about DC Universe Classics because they just simplified that line that I liked. But yeah, there's I know I need Solomon Grundy, and I think there's another early Build-A-Figure.
I never early ones. Metamorphose, the first one.
Definitely don't have him. But he's not, I'd like to have him, but I'm sure he's way more than I'd be willing to pay.
Yeah. What else am I looking for? I'm missing the Thanos Imperative box set. from Legends.
Oh, wow.
And it's one of the only ones I don't have of those big box sets. And I don't know why. I've just never run across that one at a price I want to pay. But I really like, and the figures in that set have been I have them all except for Blastar. And that's who I really want. But those boxes, like I'm an open box collector like you are for the most part.
Yeah.
But like those boxes, the Thunderbolts, the Strange, the Raft, A-Force, like I keep those in the boxes. And so they look really good with all these really nice big boxes. So I'm missing that one.
Yeah, I got that the IDW Revolution set where it had ROM and G.I. Joe and Mask and Jetfire. Like it was when IDW was doing what the Energon universe is doing now with much less success. That I kept that thing in the box just because it's so like once you take those out of the box, they're not special anymore because it's 6 different action figure lines. But in the box together, like they just look so cool. And Hasbro did get really good about making like the Raft. Like that's a presentation.
Yeah,
that
like
looks
it
cool.
Sits on top of one of my shelves.
Yeah.
Another really good one, you're talking about DC Universe Classics that holds up, is I've got the Legion of Superheroes box.
Oh, yeah, that one
I
was
ain't never been
crazy.
that one either. That thing is so nice.
Yeah, I was never really into Legion, but I was so tempted to get that set because it just looked, because that was Matty Collector days when, yeah, it sucked, but in general, you could get stuff if you were there on time.
Yeah, once you got past that loading screen from hell,
right?
but generally you can get it. Yeah,
but as much as we complained about it at the time, there were very few things that I straight up missed out on.
Yeah.
All right, what else have I got? I got some bullet points here. We've talked about the scourge of Funko Pops. We've talked about what you would have to buy. Let's see if we can wrap this up. And honestly, I wrote this down, and I don't know if I can really think of anything specifically, but what does anything cross your mind when I say the most common things to see at toy conventions? Like the stuff you see at every convention. Like you know how you go to every single used record store you go to has a sealed copy of Huey Lewis and the News Sports. Like what's the toy convention version of that?
Oh, that's a good one.
Other than Funko Pops.
Yeah, mystery boxes.
Oh yeah, mystery boxes. This kid at the horror convention was like hardcore trying to sell. Every time we walked by, he'd be like, "Hey, we've got these mystery boxes." I'm like, hey, "Get out of here, kid."
I let my kids buy those one Dragon Con when they were younger because they, when they take them to convention, you would give them some money. Here's your money for the convention.
And it's fun.
Yeah, and once they were like, we're going to buy mystery boxes. And in my head, I was like, as a parent, I should warn them about
They need to learn the lesson.
But yeah, I was like, or we can live with the natural consequence of what's about to happen.
Yeah.
What do you see a lot? Oh, you know what sticks out to me for some reason? And I don't know why I notice these all the time. The Lord of the Rings figures for some reason.
Yes, the Toy Biz ones.
Yes, are like in every booth for some reason. And they're always there. I've never seen anybody even look at them or purchase them, but they're always there.
So a few years ago, so Riley never got deep into Harry Potter. He kind of sidetracked into Lord of the Rings instead. This was, I don't know how many years ago. And we went through about a year where we were buying every one of those Lord of the Rings figures that we could find because they're dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And they're good figures if you need Lord of the Rings figures. Like they're that 1/12 scale. They're very, very detailed. They have the wonky articulation of the era, but for being able to buy at one, it might have been at a Joe Fest even, but we ended up with like this big giant box of them. I don't even know if we spent $100 on it. But then we ran into problems because he started wanting specific characters. Because when you first start a collection of older stuff like that, you just buy whatever, and you're like, okay, cool, we've got all this stuff, and then you get to the point where you're like, well, wait, I don't have Pippin yet or whatever. I don't know. and it turns out there were only 2 released, and he's expensive, and like it got to that point where the characters he was missing them because they were harder to find or more expensive, and we're like, all right, well, we got to make some decisions now.
You're in now. How deep we go?
You're right, and I think that actually kind of curbed it, or he just naturally moved on to other things. Well, yeah, I really can't think. You're right. That is one of the biggest things. It seems like 2002 He-Man stuff, like not the good characters, but like mint on card, every He-Man and Skeletor that came out, you'll usually see that Gray Skull way overpriced because it's not a good Gray Skull, but they'll like the seller may not even know that because it's always mint in box because it's only 23 years old. So that, lots of 2002 Masters of the Universe.
I see a lot of the Matty Collector, the He-Man line that they doing. I've seen more and more of that recently.
Yeah, those will be there because I think people were speculating on it. And then once Masterverse hit, and to a lesser degree, even once Origins hit, because that's I've talked about this before, but that's kind of the spot I find myself in now is Origins has at least caught up to Classics, if not surpassed it. And I'm like, do I need both of these? But I will never be able to get rid of that classic Snake Mountain because it's like one of the greatest things ever made.
Yeah.
But the Origin Snake Mountain is a better toy. It just is. Well, anything else? When I said, hey, do you want to talk about toy conventions? Anything else pop in your head that you're like, oh yeah, we could talk about this?
I think we've covered most of it.
Yeah, I think so too. I just, like I said, I just wanted to have a chat about how they've been over the years. What do you think? Can you think off the top of your head, like what the coolest get you've ever gotten?
I mean, I think getting that Thunderbolts set because I wanted it so bad. And I had somebody buy me, and it's not one that I personally got, but somebody got me the Evel Knievel Boba Fett that an art company made, and they sold it at San Diego.
Oh, I've totally forgot about that. Wow.
And somebody found it for me. And if you've heard me on different shows before, my feelings on Boba Fett are very clear about what a useless character I think he is. But that Evel Knievel Boba Fett's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that would be something if I ran across, Super 7 did that Super Shogun Boba Fett that I 100% could have bought when it came out. And I was just like, what am I going to do with that? If I came across that for the right price, I'd want that.
Well, and you know what I would do? And this is actually when I still look at it for in conventions, because I won't go on eBay and look for it and buy it, but I bet if I saw it, I would buy that original Kenner color Boba Fett that Black Series did. It was some convention exclusive.
Oh yeah, do I have that? I think I've got it. Yeah, what I don't have, they did that in Vintage Collection. Or no, wait, maybe that's the one I've got. I've got one of them. I don't remember which one I have. Because the other one I just wasn't able to get. Wait, okay. Was one of them like a Target exclusive?
The Vintage was a Target exclusive. The Black Series was on the card, on the Return of the Jedi card, and it's kind of holographic a little bit.
Okay, I think I've got that one. It's the Vintage Collection one that I couldn't get.
That's another one. That's another Black Series. I look for that Thrawn Black Series set too, because I never bought it. And the stupid part about that Thrawn Black Series, I have other Thrawn figures. I got the Ultramarine now. I just want the Grail. Like, I'm literally going to pay $100 for a 1-inch cup.
But if you're going to keep it in that presentation, again, Hasbro, they do cool stuff. Yeah, Rexship's right. Clearly my greatest con purchase of all time. I bought a box of G.I. Joe Earthquake vehicles, a vehicle that I didn't even really know anything about until recently, and gave some away. Gave most of them away, actually. And then at the I kept one for myself. I gave one to Christian. I think Noel got most of one. I gave a couple more away. And then I still had like 3 or 4 of them left, and somebody bought that box. They were in the same box, bought that from me at the sale I had here at the house. Chad J. Shonk, this is a perfect way to close out this episode. Chad J. Shonk dropped in to say, my takeaway, Ryan loves Boba Fett.
Look, Chad J. Shonk, we're recording our podcast tomorrow, and we can discuss further my thoughts on Boba Fett if you would like. Maybe I'll throw some extra Last Jedi content in there just to round it out.
Oh, my gosh. So what a perfect segue for us to wrap it up. Ryan, speaking of your podcast, tell us about it and where we can find it.
Yeah, you can find me and Chad, you just saw in the comments, and Beth from the Needless Things family on our show Execute Chapter 66, a Star Wars fiction podcast where it's a book club where we go through a new book, old, EU and current books. We do a new book every 2 weeks, and you can. And sometimes I sing songs, I make funny jokes, and they put up with me.
And we did. I was thrilled to be a guest a couple months ago on a review of. What did we review? What the heck is it called?
Skeleton Crew.
The Goonies show.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have we'll have Andor soon. That'll be our next
that's right.
show will be Andor.
Yeah, I want to come back for that. I'm into that. Although that one's almost too deep to cover in an episode. Like Skeleton Crew, it was really fun, but it's pretty light, so you could kind of cover the whole series in an episode. Andor gets pretty deep. That might be a lot to cover in one episode.
If you aren't aware what the Gore Massacre is in Star Wars, get ready. This show is not going to be happy.
Well, Ryan, thanks for hanging out. We had a lot of fun talking about toy conventions. The audio version of this episode will be available soon. Check out Needless Things channel on Instagram. Look at the pinned stories. Get yourself some merch. And, of course, check out Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and right here on the Needless Things YouTube channel. Our next episode is April the 7th, so catch us live there. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night.